All right. First, thank you all for joining our final personal carbon footprint workshop and concluding ceremony. So, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. So, I'm not sure how many of you have joined our first session. So today, this will be our last session, and we have conducted our first carbon footprint workshop on the 5th of January. So, a quick housekeeping rules. So today's session will be slightly different. So, be given a chance to actually unmute yourself and speak during certain parts of the session. So please, to keep things smooth and noise-free, only hit the mute button when you are speaking and raise your hand and wait to be called before you start speaking. If you have any questions and thoughts, feel free to drop them in the chat box. And for your information, we will not be having a Q&A session. However, we'll try to address the questions during the entire workshop as well. But there won't be a specific dedicated session for Q&A. So please ensure you have stable Wi-Fi, especially if you are speaking. I hope my Wi-Fi is good, but if it's not, the team will let me know. Before we start, we'll have a group photo. So please turn your camera. And if you already have our background, please change it to our background. Otherwise, it's fine as well. So can the team as well drop the background image to the Zoom chat? Thank you. Towards the end, we'll share the feedback form. So there'll be two feedback forms. One is a user feedback form, and one is more on the experience on this final workshop. So the feedback is really important to help us to improve our future session. Cool. A quick introduction of myself. So I'm Shao. So I'm the co-founder of Sustainkita. So today we have our team as well, and also our volunteers. Thank you so much for putting the time to put this together. If you have any questions regarding the session, how to improve, or anything related to collaboration, feel free to reach out to myself, or you can send an email to sustainkita@gmail.com. So before we start, actually just an icebreaker, because I know everyone must be a bit tired. It's afternoon. Maybe you just had your lunch. So a very simple question. So we'll play a quick game to understand, if you have a superpower, what would that be and why? And how it works is you just send something, your answer in the chat, and we can discuss it through. All right. And so for me to be able to see your response, I will actually exit. So I'll be able to see your response. So quick one. So if you have a superpower again, what would that be? So if you can do time travel, or if you want to be able to teleport from place to place, or if you want to see and maybe feel your loved ones through technology, let us know, if you actually have a superpower, what would that be? It can be something crazy that you really want to do if you actually have the superpower. Nice. Thanks for the response. Yeah, teleportation is good one. You'll be able to travel anywhere with your family and friends and luggages fast. Yeah. Checking in is quite time consuming sometimes if you travel from place to place. Being able to teleport really saves a lot of time. I do wonder how much energy it takes for us to be able to do that. Any other thoughts? I'll give you like a 5 seconds count. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next slide. Cool. All right. So a quick one on our workshop agenda of today. So we will first introduce Sustainkita again. So if you have been speaking to us with us since the first workshop, you probably know very well who are we and what we're doing. But we'll just do a quick intro for those who are the first timer. And then we'll jump into a recap on our previous workshop. And then we'll do a recap on climate change and how it actually is related to our personal carbon emissions. And then introduction to personal carbon emissions calculator. We name it Zero. And then a quick online forum to discuss some thought-provoking questions. All right, and last, we will then celebrate some achievement in the past. So to recognize some of our very active winners. And last, conclusion and final remarks. Okay, quickly about this. So we're Sustainkita founded in 2022, and we began as an initiative to raise awareness on sustainability with a focus on climate action, renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture. So our commitment is to drive sustainable agenda um, both locally and globally, and we actively collaborate with local business and NGOs to foster synergistic partnerships, unlocking opportunities to advance sustainability initiatives. So we also strive to bridge the gap in terms of knowledge and awareness through awareness building webinars, podcasts, and workshops, as well as hiking sessions. So all in all, it's through these simple activities we aspire to build the next generation of leaders champion a sustainable future. So this is our previous webinar. I think, let me just share my screen quickly. So before we start, we actually would like to, everyone to, so at this point, I think it's a good time for us to take a quick group photo. So if it's convenient for you, feel free to turn on your camera, remain unmute, and we'll take a quick group photo before I proceed to the next slides. Okay, do we have everyone? Okay, nice.
Let's give it like a minute, then yeah. Okay. Okay lah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So everyone smile in 3, 2, 1. Right. Yeah. Nice. Oh wait. I think yeah. I
Okay,
think
we have many
let's
people
take one
joining
more.
this.
Can we take
Yep.
one more? Can we take one more? Okay, let's take one more. 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you everyone for the cooperation and thank you for turning on camera. So I'll proceed with sharing my screen again. I hope you can still see it. And so this is a quick one on the webinars that we have conducted in the past. So we started the program on the 5th of January. That was our first workshop. And then we continued with 3 webinars. The first one was on 18th and then 22nd of February, 8th of February, and the last one is 22nd of February. So if you're interested to learn more, feel free to scan the QR code and you'll be directed to our website where you can click on the link and watch those videos. All right, a quick recap. We're very happy to share that we received 29 participants in our first carbon footprint workshop. I do hope that some of you guys who joined the first workshop are here with us today, because we'll actually be comparing your previous carbon footprint with the current one, with the latest one, after considering some of the actions you'll be taking to reduce your carbon footprint. Okay, just to mention in passing, and then the next one, webinar 1, we talk about challenges and solutions of climate change, where we had 43 participants. So it was quite an insightful session, but we had Mr. Rennert, Dr. Rennert, to share with us about some science-based evidence on climate change. And then the next one, we talk about renewable energy. We had 24 participants. So essentially in this discussion, it was mainly about how do we install solar panel? What are the initiatives in place to incentivize or even enable household to install solar panels and to also explore other renewable energy? We also talk about how do we actually maximize the energy efficiency in the house. And the last webinar, we talk about sustainable waste management. In fact, our host of the day is actually with us as well. So we had Zero Waste Malaysia, as well as Sungai Watch, who share their experience trying to advocate for sustainable waste management in Indonesia and Malaysia. And yeah, so a quick recap as well before we dive deeper into carbon footprint calculator. And before I continue with the session, I just want to thank you to those winners who are with us today. So towards the last part, we'll actually have a very small scale award ceremony. So yeah, so just a quick note to those winners. Do stay with us until the last part of the session. A quick recap on climate change. So as we all know, or if you don't know that now you know, climate change is caused by accumulating of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere, and there is various impact of climate change that we are already experiencing, including human health issues, biodiversity losses, glacier melting, and extreme weather. And next, this is more like a image to show the difference between 1.5 degree and 2 degree of global warming. So there is a big difference. Science-based evidence has shown that. So if you're interested to learn more, feel free to go on to WWF and type in the keyword climate change 1.5 degree. All right. So I'm going to run it through very quickly because I understand that some of you might have already joined our first carbon footprint workshop. If you're interested to learn more, again, I'm just going to jump back quickly to this QR code. You can scan this QR code and it will direct you to the first carbon footprint workshop where you can explore more. And the session was actually hosted by Jason, our previous host, who is also with us today. All right. So next is a quick introduction on greenhouse gas. These are all the gases that constitute as greenhouse gas and why climate change matter. And this is just a quick estimation on personal carbon footprint in European Union countries, Malaysia, and India. So again, the measurement differs based on the country population. That's why you can see a stark difference. Again, it also differs from person to person within the same country. All right, but overall, the average global footprint per person is 4 tons CO2 equivalent per year. All right, so again, a recap on our carbon footprint reduction journey. So again, to share, the entire objective of this whole program is about empowering our participants on how they can effectively reduce their carbon emissions, or otherwise inspire them to take actions to reduce their emissions. So we had our first workshop, as mentioned, on the 5th of January, so that carbon emissions that you measure will actually be your baseline. Again, we also understand that the approach that we took last time around, we use a Excel calculator. But today, as we progress, the team has been putting a lot of effort to create a web-based emissions calculator, which we will be sharing later on. So you'll be using a different tool. So the assumptions behind will be slightly different. So it might not be an apple-to-apple comparison, but we still hope that you can still see a difference between implementing actions or not taking any actions to reduce your personal carbon footprint. And we also would like our people, participants who have joined us, to actually set a goal. If you can realistically, imagine what sort of actions you can take to reduce your emissions, or you can do it the other way around by setting the goal. Say now you are at the 8 ton, you are interested to actually reduce it down by 10%, which is 7.2 ton. So then you think about what sort of actions will effectively lead you to that target. All right, and today, again, if I explain myself well, so that was the first baseline that you set, and then there's a goal, and then after that, you actually track your progress over time using the web-based calculator. Okay, and this is the main categories of carbon emissions: travel, home, food, purchase, and waste, which we have explained in the first workshop. So this is a dashboard, just a quick recap. So this is what we had in the first carbon footprint workshop, where we use Excel calculator. After you key in all the emissions, all the numbers, your activity data, and it will lead you to this page. Then you will see your overall carbon footprint with a breakdown. And there's also on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see the equivalent of your carbon footprint. All right? If you have any questions specifically on the dashboard on this session, if you don't feel like sending questions through the chat, feel free to send us an email. Committee team, if you could just drop our email address in the chat box as well, so they can contact us if they want to. All right, a quick one. So today we'll be introducing our. It's actually it's still an alpha version, so we're still actively working on improving the backend. However, today the front end will actually work, so you'll be able to key in your activity data as I go through. I'll show you later on. But just bear in mind that whatever data you key in on the website, it will not be saved, although you have a profile. We're still working on it, but the backend is not connected to the storage yet. So just bear in mind that. But if you actually log onto the site, it will still be stored locally, just that when you log out, the data might be gone. But again, it will still be able to tell you the final results. So there are several objectives of us using it, or of us using this pause zero calculator. It will provide you with quick estimations of your carbon emissions, and hopefully will help you to track and to trace your lifestyle carbon footprint, and that it will be the phase two of our carbon calculator objective. It will allow you to appreciate the figure, so there's actually a carbon emissions equivalent under the calculator, and allow you to identify gaps and reduce emissions. So a quick one. Um, so introducing this is a dashboard, which I will bring you through later on. So a quick one, and this is the objective as mentioned just now. And the carbon footprint calculator split into five main categories, very similar to the Excel calculator if you've used it before. A note to David, who is with us, joined the first carbon footprint session. Patricia, who else? Alexandra, hope Christy is also with us today. So if I remember, you guys are the ones who have filled in the carbon footprint calculator. I'm sure there are more, but these are the ones on top of my mind. So there are five main categories, very similar to Excel calculator. And so the QR code is here. Feel free to scan it. Once you scan it, I will actually stop sharing the screen. I'll go on to the other screen. Hope you can still see it. All right, I'll stop sharing my screen for a while. We will also be dropping the link in the chat, so don't worry if you did not manage to scan the QR code. Just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, just 1 second. Let me share the right screen. Okay, I'm actually quickly going to share my entire screen for this 1 second. So stop sharing. Sorry, it's not really working as what it's intended to. So actually I wanted to show you the login process, but for those who have just clicked on the link www.paulzero.com, I hope everyone have access to the link. Let me check the chat box. Chun, can you help me to check if the link is already there? The www.paulzero.com.
Yes, the link is there.
Okay, thanks. So if you have clicked on the link, it will direct you, you'll be on the landing page. So sorry, I can't actually show that to you because okay, I'm back. So can I check if everyone is here? Otherwise, you can just look at my screen first and then you explore that yourself after I demonstrate. Ideally, you'll be able to log in using Google. All right, so that's the best if you can do that. Otherwise, if you do face some issues, continue as guests. All right, so if you sign using Google, because I already signed in before, it will direct me to this site. Just authentication. Coming here, I click on the link and I'll just continue. And I'll come to the onboarding section. So I'll select my region. This is my email. It's a fake name because this is another email address. So to kind of differentiate that, it will be Polly. And go on to the next page. And there's a number of careers that you can select from. Just select the one that's most relevant to you. So in my case, I am still a student, and household size depends on how many people in your house. Say, for example, if you live in a student accommodation, within the flat there are 8 people, so then I'll just maybe put 8 people. But again, this is a fake person, it's pause 0, so it might not be me. So I will say in an urban area, that's where I live. Okay, and then you will actually face an issue to save your profile. And that's where we mentioned this is where the bug is. So you can't proceed to the next stage, which is still fine. So you go back. And you type in so this is if you experience a problem and you want to bypass that, you just continue as guest. All right. So if you can log in, you try to log in, complete the onboarding session. If you cannot, most likely you can't. So it's okay. You just kind of click on the guest mode. Are we okay? All right. So I think to make things easy, instead of using the Google mode, you can just click on the guest mode. So if you are able to log in using Google, maybe you can send a 1 to the chat. If you cannot, maybe you can send a 2 to the chat. So you can't log in using Google. And those who send a 2 to the chat, meaning you can't log in using Google, you can't do the onboarding on the onboarding section, which is fine. Just click on the guest mode and you will be directed to the carbon calculator still, and you'll be able to complete your emissions, starting from travel and then going through home, food, purchase, and waste. All right. Can I check if anyone experiencing some difficulties to come to this page? So I think simple instruction will be just click on the guest mode and you'll be directed to travel page. Yeah, so if you actually able to do the Google Note, which is complete the onboarding session, complete the form and be directed here, send a 1 in the chat. If you can't complete using the Google login method, send us a 2. And if you send a 2, just use the guest mode to log in. So let me just check if anyone react. Okay, you can do that. Christy is saying it doesn't direct me to the onboarding page, it leads me to travel mentions. Yeah, that's okay, that's okay. It leads you there so you can start actually putting in the data. Cool. Before I move on to the next step, can I quickly check anyone experiencing issues that out of what I described? So 1 means you successfully log in using Google, which means your data ideally will be recorded. And 2 means you are using the guest mode. So can I also check the rest? So now we have 1. What about if anyone using the guest mode? You can also drop a 2 in the chat. Will be very helpful for us to proceed. Cool. It's okay. So I will continue to explain how it works, starting from the emissions. So if you are on the site, can you just click on travel? So once you click on travel, it will ask you the emissions, the region that you're based in. So this is quite important because the emission factor will be based on the region that you are based in. So you can just click if you are in Scotland, England, Malaysia, Indonesia, and other. The reason being, the reason why there's limited countries also depends on number of users. So we are doing a very small scale test right now and focusing on Malaysia, UK, and Indonesia. So these are the countries that we're focused on. So in the future, we might be scaling, but right now, the focus is really on perfecting the calculator for these regions. So after that, you will insert input will be the number of hours you spend in a car. So if you don't spend any time in the car, you can put a 0. So if you do spend some time in the car, meaning you drive, so you can put a number 4. Like say you spend 4 hours per week, and then this question will ask you what sort of car you're driving. Is it hybrid car, petrol car, diesel car? Because the emission factor will be different. And number of hours you drive on a motorbike, and assume that motorbike typically is petrol. If your motorbike is slightly different, then the emissions will be different. But the most common motorbike in Malaysia, I think, is powered by petrol, if not mistaken. Okay, and then next one is on taxi and ride. If you do take a taxi and ride, and continue with other type of transport. If you have any questions with regards to how the emissions being calculated, you can always toggle to the I. So there's a small I beside the questions. So that's where you can understand how the emissions is being calculated. If you feel the emissions calculation is questionable, or if you feel there's a better way to calculate, feel free to send us an email at sustainkita.marketing@gmail.com or sustainkita@gmail.com. We would like to improve the calculator, so feedback on how we can improve is always welcome. But again, there's also a feedback form towards the last part of the session where you can tell us how we can actually improve the calculator. And the best way for you to share the feedback will be through the feedback form because it will be tabulated nicely so we know where we can actually improve. Cool. Continuing, so once you input all these your travel activities, you can go to next. So let me just put it more realistically. I put a 10, although this is not me. So number of occupants in the house, similar to what you have input if you actually completed onboarding session, occupants, and again, similar to last time, what you did for the Excel calculator if you've done it. But otherwise, the emission is calculated using ringgit. Reason being is much easier for you to estimate on how much you pay for electricity bill or water bill. So that was the thought process. And from here, we will actually back calculate to amount of electricity that you consume per month, per year, and then do a total. So digital carbon footprint is something that we actually consider in the carbon calculator this round as well, because as we all progress, there's increasing need for use of data, and people also start using a lot more internet data and do a lot more streaming. So that in itself actually leads to carbon emissions as well. So we are including that as well. So just put in the gigabyte. Typically, a data plan for per person is about 10 gig. That's at least for me. So if yours is different, you can always check how much you use using your phone. You can track, your data usage if you want it to be more accurate. And streaming hours, again, is based on monthly and number of device, because number of device will be a multiplier to the number of streaming hours, assuming that you use the same amount. And air conditioning is another major contributor of carbon emissions because it releases GHG. That will be another very potent greenhouse gas. So number of AC, sorry, hours of AC. So how many hours you use air conditioning per day, and refrigerator, you can just turn it into green if you actually use it. If you don't, just turn it off. All right. So if you actually turn it on, then you would then be asked to include a number. Okay, next. Typical diet, something different from what we did for our Excel calculator. Last time around, we asked two questions. So the first one is more focused on non-meat diet, and second question is focused more on how often do you consume meat. But today we have combined it into this type of diet. So this diet breakdown is actually based on a research paper in the UK. Again, we have adapted. The main adaptation that we make is based on the amount of food they consume by people in the UK and people in Malaysia. So overall, in terms of population, the food consumption in Malaysia is slightly lower. So it will be like 80% or 90% of the population in the UK. So that has been factored in as well. So far, I know I've been talking a lot. Any questions?
Hi, Shao, Akila here. Just wanted
Yes.
to ask and clarify, right? Thank you so much for this session, by the way. It's really helpful. So those questions about how many people in the household, and then you go to the digital footprint. Do I consider, meaning, do I also look at the other people in my house that is using the internet? And then in terms of electronic devices, is it just mine or for the whole home, for everyone in the
All
home?
right. Good question. Thanks, Akila, if I pronounce your name correctly. So
Yes.
the digital footprint will be for yourself. I think we should have make it clearer. So thanks for pointing that out, something we can improve. So just bear in mind, digital footprint is for yourself. So not counting the amount that's used by your family members within the household.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself, or if you like to type in the chat, feel free as well. We want to make it as interactive as possible so we can essentially talk through the questions. If you like, or if you have any, doubts with regards to why we ask certain questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself. I think first thing is you raise your hand so I know where to pause. Okay, looks like we're okay. So I'm gonna continue, but if you have any questions, feel free to send in the chat, I will try my best to come back to the chat and check if there's any questions to be answered. All right. Okay, move on. So I'll go on to next. So now we are at the food emissions. So I talked about the diet just now. So today we actually have consolidated the two questions into one question. So if a meat eater, this is amount, but again, it's really estimation because we all have different sort of diet. Maybe your diet is so unique that it doesn't fall into the average diet in the world. So it might be difficult to measure. If you're interested to actually more effectively measure your carbon footprint in terms of food, there's actually various tools available. I think United Nations has a tool as well. You can always check out the amount that you consume per ingredients, like how much of apple you eat, like is it 100 grams or how much of pancake you consume. So all these can be more accurate. But again, the calculator is tailored to ideally everyone based in UK, Malaysia, Indonesia. So we make it very broad. And these takeaway meals we consider not dining in, but things that you take away and then you bring it back home. So for example, you order delivery from Grab, you order something from Foodpanda. All these will be considered as takeaway meals. And because takeaway meals typically it comes with packaging, so there will be extra emissions from this packaging. If you would like to know more, there's a toggle button. So you go on toggle, then you know how it's being calculated. So for each of the diet, so you can see 7.19 kilogram carbon emissions equivalent per day, that will be for high meat eater. And let's just look at the vegan. If you're vegan, then it will be 2.89. So there's a big difference, actually more than 2 times difference in carbon emissions in terms of the diet difference. So if food is actually something that you're interested to actually focus more to reduce emissions, this is where you can actually put in some effort to actually reduce the meat consumption. All right, sorry, I think I'm taking too long. So I do want you guys to try it out because we do have a session later on to talk about how do we reduce carbon footprint. But I hope I'm not going too fast. If I'm speaking too fast or if you're not following, feel free to stop me by raising your hand or by typing in the chat. So this is estimated food waste percentage. Essentially, if you consume, say, a plate of nasi biryani, how much actually go to waste? Say if you don't finish 10% of it, then 10%. But it is on average. So every time you eat something, actually how much actually you throw away without putting in your stomach. So that would be considered as food waste. And food waste, the emissions actually is much higher than general waste because it will release methane gas. All right, so I'm going to put 10% here. Next, purchase emissions. Something very tricky for us to ascertain, what to include, what not to include. But we have decided the higher emissions will be electronics because it involve multiple steps from, say, maybe just take one part, like lithium battery, that's a long supply chain production. And next one, furniture, how many furniture you purchase per year? Because it's a large item. And we understand that maybe purchase of furniture only happens when you go up to a certain age, you start having a home. Okay, we do have a questions coming in. Okay, a final result show that I produce carbon more than 300 ton. Okay, I'm not sure. David, you can just unmute yourself. So and I will toggle to the page that you mentioned. It was about home. How? So I'm gonna assume that you actually put Indonesia region here, and then coming to home is in MYR. Okay, I understand the problem here. Let me see if it works. Okay. Thanks, Kenny, for answering the questions. I think we have set it as IDR, and it's supposed to work. Okay, might be a little hard to do the estimation. David, understand that you are actually based in Indonesia. Just for this calculator to work this well, we will be doing some improvisation afterwards based on your feedback. So I think what you're saying is if you key in the currency, although the currency on my page, when I change to Indonesia, it shows me Indonesian rupee, but it doesn't really reflect when it does when it compute the calculations. So I think another way you can do it is, perhaps I know that you're based in Indonesia, you change it to Malaysia, because maybe the Malaysian calculation will work. Sorry, again, to clarify, this is our first time actually pre-launch it. So there is still a lot of sections that we can improve. But now I see Indonesian, there's an issue in terms of calculation. We'll work on that later on. But for today, for you to get admissions, can you just change it to Malaysia? So you come back here, come back to travel, to change your region. So if you come back to travel and you change your region, it will work. Broadly speaking, the emissions calculations, in terms of calculations and emission factor that we use for Malaysia and Indonesia are largely the same, except for grid emissions. So there might be some differences. But again, for your emissions to work today, you can change to Malaysia and we will fix the front for Indonesian, if that works for you. Can give me a thumbs up if that sort your worries, and I'll proceed. Okay, I'm just going to proceed, but if you have further questions, feel free to send the chat. But a way to solve it for now is to change it to Malaysia and see if it works for you. Which means that you might need to do some conversion from Indonesian rupee back to Malaysian ringgit. Okay, quickly, I'm going to come back to purchase where I left off just now. Again, very simple calculations on number of clothing, number of pair of shoes. Again, this is based on average emissions per products from the production until you purchase it. So the whole waste will not be accounted for. Yeah. So there will be differences in terms of brand. Say you purchase a clothing from LV or from Shein, the emissions will be different. But again, this is not being accounted. We just take an average of the production for production until the point of purchase. What are the emissions involved? Okay, so I'm just going to quickly put as 1, as 2, as maybe 1 and 2 device. Next. And recycle waste and general emissions. So if you recycle something, the emission is actually lower because it won't actually end up in the landfill, or it won't be end up in the incinerator. So the emission is lower, and it might actually become some other product as well. If it's a general waste, and there's also some the emissions factor that we use to calculate this number. If you're interested to learn more about it, again, toggle to the exclamation mark button. Sorry, it's I button. All right, next one. So after that, you'll be able to see your results if you click on the view results. The food emissions, let me see. Okay, food emissions, a very important thing is for you to select the emissions, the type of diet. So I'm going to put in fish, and next, view results again. Okay, now it's working. So in terms of travel, there's 7.5. So your emissions will be different, right? So this will be your total carbon footprint. Again, it's just an estimation, or maybe it's an underestimation. There's also other emissions that we have not accounted for. There are specifics for your lifestyle. Say, for example, if you have a pet, right? The pet, having a pet for 12 years, actually, that also has its own associated carbon emissions. All right, so if you are still following me, can I get a number 1? Can you send a number 1 in the chat? If you are following, sorry, Christy has a question. My apologies, I missed that. If the purchases are mostly thrifted, would it still be the same? Yes, I think it will. Sorry, the question, will it still be the same? No, it won't be the same. My understanding is, if you purchase something from someone else, there's really carbon emission. So you are essentially taking over, right? So if I look at the whole population, like say if 2 people actually own that, so essentially these 2 persons, they own the same product if you purchase for someone else. So maybe emissions, logically speaking, maybe you can halve it, or even less than that. So if you purchase something mostly thrifted, I think the emissions will be much lower. But again, it's quite hard to then account, how much emissions should be on you and how much emissions should be on the other person. All right, I assume that everyone has completed the exercise. We'll actually quickly move on to a quick discussion. So this is the results. And if you are still on the site, we will be sending a feedback form later on. So it will be very helpful for you to actually record your results before you move on from this page. Once it's recorded, it will be reflected on the dashboard. So assuming everyone now is on the dashboard, if you're not, then maybe you can send it through then, or send it through with your technical issues that you're facing, and we'll try to resolve that. Or maybe Kenny can help me to resolve that on the side. So this is the total emissions, a breakdown similar to what you saw just now. Here you will see the environmental impact, how many trees needed to absorb this amount of carbon emissions, how many car number of miles, and household year emissions. And there's emission comparison as well. This is based on average emissions of the population in different countries. So UK is higher, Malaysia, and then Indonesia. India is much lower. I do think that's based on because of the population size. So it's divided by that, and hence it's much lower. And in terms of benchmark, 1 year of driving is equivalent to 4.6. So if your emissions is around 9.6, then that would be double. So this is just a comparison, so you'll be able to better appreciate the emission.
I think Shao might
To
be
participants here.
frozen. So okay, sorry.
Sorry, I was sharing screen, so maybe. Thanks.
Great.
Yeah,
Great to have
before you
feedback.
leave this page. Okay, thanks. So you'll be able to see that at the bottom of the page on dashboard, you'll be able to download the emissions report. So if you can just quickly download the report, and these then will be used as an attachment when you complete the feedback form. So what we want to do is to understand the breakdown of emissions as well. Unfortunately, the back end is still work in progress, so we're unable to record your emissions. So we do want you to download your emissions report and then upload it in the feedback form later on. Cool. Any questions, feel free to send in the chat and we will address them. Sorry, it's always an issue for me to share my screen, find the right screen. Cool, found it. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. So I know that we are a bit running overrun. That's okay. Okay, quick one. So just want to kind of give you a gauge on how much emissions is 1 ton. So 1 ton is enough to fill a hot air balloon with a diameter about 10 meters. So then you can imagine how much of emissions, how many hot air balloons you're producing per year. I thought that was quite interesting. And next, on your experience. So we do want to understand how is experience using the calculator that we curated. Again, there's a lot of sections that we can improve, like for example, the Indonesian emissions that will need to be fixed, and also other areas as well. Especially the onboarding side will be fixed as well, hopefully. And we'll send you a notice when the calculator is actually ready. So now it's still a alpha version. There's still a lot of work to be done. So if you can, just scan the QR code, scan it, and then tell us your experience using the calculator and where we can improve. All right, and Chimo will be also sending the link to the feedback form later on, so I'll move to the next slide. All right, a quick one. So just now you probably have a look at the toggle button. Which diet produced the carbon emissions compared to a meat-based diet, which diet produces half the carbon emissions compared to a meat-based diet? If you can just tell us A, B, C, D, and Kenny will be pulling up a poll, right? And everyone can click on your preferred option. All right, I think we're sorting it out and the poll will be sent very soon. Meanwhile, if you have some time, The feedback form, I think link is already in the chat, so you can click on it and then tell us your feedback. Right, I hope you can see the screen. So the poll, is it A, B, C, or D? We have one answer so far. Is keto diet. Okay. Anyone else? So we have 1, 2, 4 person. 4 people have answered the poll. Okay, seafood diet, B. Okay, so majority selected seafood diet. All right, so the answer is actually plant-based diet. So I'm moving to the next slide and I'll end the poll. Okay, the seafood diet is increasing. Okay, so due to the time constraint, I'll move to the next one. But noted that the majority selected seafood, and 1 and 1 selected A and C. Okay, stop sharing, and I'll close it. All right, so majority actually selected keto diet, around 5 people, and 1 selected majority selected seafood diet, B. But let me move on to the next slide and you know the answer. So the answer is actually plant-based diet. So switching to a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet will actually halve your emissions. And because livestock farming is the largest methane, so the emissions is really high. So a quick one. And what do you think is the annual CO2 footprint of video streaming worldwide? Again, thanks Kenny for working out behind the scene to pull out the poll. Thanks. So there's ABCD, 50 tons, 100 tons, 500 tons, 101 million tons. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll show the results. Okay, majority selected D. Okay, it's actually about the same now. Okay, let's just remember B, C, and D. So majority selected the last options, and I'll end poll, and I'll close it. So next slide. So the answer is actually 1 million tons. So congratulations to those who actually got it right. Streaming might seem harmless, but it's actually collectively it leads to massive emissions. Right. Next, how much CO2 does one round trip flight from London to Europe generate per passenger? Cool. Again, I'm going to do a quick countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, majority selected number C. C. Okay, and poll. Share result. Stop sharing. And let's see the answer. I actually forgot myself. It's actually 1.6 ton. So, and you can see the calculations as well based on the miles and kilometers traveled. And because jet engines emit large quantity of CO2, and actually take off and maintain the flight altitude constitute very high emissions. Right, next slide. So again, we're going to talk through very quickly on how we can reduce your emissions. I'm sure every one of you are aware, how we can reduce. Majority, on average, will be travel emissions the highest. So if you do drive a lot, if you're living in an area where the public transport is more accessible, you can consider to take the options. But I'm just going to quickly run through some of the slides that my team has prepared. I think they're very insightful. But again, I might not be able to cover it all, so I'm just going to kind of run through them. A quick one on home emissions, turning off appliance and just don't leave it there if you're not actually using it. So there's to prevent that phantom power. Actually, I learned it from my team as well. I didn't know that exists. So you can account 10% of household emissions. So always turn off your appliances or unplug it if you are not actually using it. And the AC temperature as well. Malaysia, Indonesia, very hot countries, we all use AC, is increasingly common in these countries. And I think it'll be even more common as we move forward to 2030, 2040. The world is just going to get warmer. So I think what we can do is actually set AC temperature at a minimal, as optimum temperature is 24, 25. Don't go too low, like 18 and 17. That leads to very high emissions. But again, that is comfortable. And I think one thing to mention is also your body sort of adapt to a temperature. So if you keep setting at 17, 18, then the fact is you will need this temperature to feel comfortable. And next will be emissions from home as well. You can always track. A very easy way is to track if your appliances are actually energy efficient by checking for labels. If you're 5, 4, 3, I mean, there is different benchmark. You can look for that. To ensure that all the devices that you use, all the lights, LED lights are efficient. and you can switch, you change products or change the brand to a more efficient brand. Next, emissions from the home as well. If you can afford renewable energy installation in your household, if you actually have your own rooftop, you can actually opt for solar powered home. And for those young people who are yet to purchase a home, I think increasingly developers are looking at homes that come with solar panels. Next, emission from home again. So this is on streaming. Just now we talked about streaming, although you thought, it's just streaming videos and not really emitting, but it actually leads to quite high emissions. Next, emission from travel. Some options that you consider carpooling. So if both you and your colleague living around the same area going to work every day, then an option that you consider is actually carpooling. And it also save on fuel use as well. Cycling and walking depends on where you are from. I know in many regions of Malaysia might not be suitable, uphill, downhill, and we might not have the necessary path to ensure your safety as you walk or as you cycle. Something that we will discuss later on. And the last one, the public transport, if you do have access to public transport. And next, emission from travel as well. EV. So EV is a big topic. It does reduce emissions, but we also need to consider the whole life cycle to produce electric vehicles. And then the frequent maintenance. But again, I think the lesson is, or maybe the key takeaway is always do your research before you opt for a lower emissions activity to kind of double check if that actually lead to lower emissions, considering the production cycle of the car as well. And last, maintenance of the car. So frequent maintenance will lead to higher emissions. So drive carefully to avoid tire puncture. Sometimes are avoidable, but you can just avoid that. Will be good. Next, emissions from purchased good. So as we all know, fast fashions it's not good. It's very high. Actually, it's not good for the environment, not good for the labor who are involved in fast fashions. Next, emissions from food. So bring your own bag. It's a very good initiative they can do whenever you go on shopping, and it also save on your money if you need to actually buy a plastic bag on the spot. And planting trees, if you have the space, always try to kind of include some greeneries in your household because that helps to absorb CO2. Emissions from food, I think we talked about it just now. Plant-based emissions actually have much lower emissions compared to meat-based diet. And opting for local products will also reduce emissions because food, the transportation is actually being accounted as well for the food that's being produced. So if something is being produced in the United States, logistic emissions is actually very high. So these are some of the, I think, useful tools that you can explore if you're interested to reduce your emissions to lead a lower carbon emissions lifestyle. So there's a UN recommendation, and there's also a low carbon diet calculator. The link is there. I do understand it might be hard for you to copy it. So what I'll do is I'll drop the link quickly to the chat. Okay, I'll drop that here. And then the science-based emissions. I'll drop that as well. Cool. And I'll go back to presentation mode. Next, emissions from waste, as we actually talked about it just now. As much as possible, we should also reduce the waste that produced, such as plastic and also other products, and always opt for more sustainable products. Next, emissions from waste as well. Reduce food waste as way forward because food waste has much higher emissions compared to general waste. And again, the same principle: reduce, reuse, recycle. So, a quick discussion before we run our quick virtual award ceremony. I know you guys have been waiting. So this is the kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions per 100 grams of proteins. And I just want to get a sense of what's your observation. If you do have some thoughts on this chart, you can either raise your hand if you want to do it verbally, or you can just send your observation in the chat. It's more like just based on a quick chart, this simple chart, what is your observations? Any thoughts from anyone? Yes, that's right. So plant-based source is definitely more environmental friendly than animal sources, and that is right. But if you just look at quickly, I'll just go on to the next slide and share some of the data that we have. So you move to the next slide. So beef actually has very, very high emissions and is a carbon monster. And in fact, all these ingredients, all these food, they serve the same purpose to give out, grams of proteins for humans. And they are the same. Just however, the emissions varies drastically from beef to tofu. So tofu is 2, and taking beef is 35.5. So just want to kind of show that there's a big difference in terms of the diet selection. Right? Next slide. If climate change might not be everyone's priority, should we still care about our personal impact? So we talk about personal carbon footprint, and also understand that you know personal effort might be minimal, but should we still then care about it and try to reduce emissions, or should we wait for collective actions or for high emitting companies to act? There's no right or wrong answer. I think it is a very subjective thing. We do understand corporate carbon emissions is, I think, is around 70%, is really high. Um, so what's your thoughts on this? So should we still care about our personal carbon footprint? Should we still take the necessary actions as an individual to reduce carbon emissions? Or maybe there's something else better that we can do?
Hmm.
Yeah, great. Yeah, influencing is a good one. Yeah, that's true. So I'm very happy to know that we're all very positive people. So we do believe that small impact are also matter as well individual actions, and that's the first step to empower collective actions. Thank you so much for sending your thoughts. Small changes in routine matter too. Yes, definitely. Collection action is more powerful than we think it is. Yes, and that's why we need this awareness by understanding your own carbon footprint, and then you can understand how that leads to a bigger impact. Yes, and change always starts from ourselves. Good one. I will actually move on to the next question. Thank you so much for the contributions. If you like, you can also unmute yourself, raise your hand. All right, next one. Again, it's around the same line, systemic or individual responsibility. But I think based on the input in the chat, we do believe in individual actions to shift or to make a change in terms of mitigating the impact of climate change. But again, if you have the capacity, if you have the ability, it's always good to as well to influence and advocate for change at the higher level. Any other thoughts on this statement? All right. I think yep, someone want to say something? All right. So I think just taking a conclusion from what has been shared in the chat, we do believe in individual actions, but again, influencing, coming together to advocate for bigger change is also very important. The next one is on what are the enablers needed to empower individuals to reduce emissions. So there are some ideas on the screen, but wondering what do you think about the necessary enablers to help you to reduce emissions? Sorry, the stream will be a bit distorted, so I'll be able to see the ideas coming in the chat. So the question is, what are the enablers? Now that we know there are multiple ways to reduce emissions, and we do believe in individual impacts. What are the enablers? Say, government incentive, government policy, infrastructure, awareness, education, companies' responsibility. What do you think are the more important enabler to empower individuals to reduce emissions? Yeah, definitely accessible infrastructure should be prominent. I totally agree. But sometimes it's also like a chicken and egg problem. Like say for example, recycling facilities. Sufficient users are required, or sufficient recyclables are required to maintain to sustainably maintain recycling facilities. Yes, definitely enforcement policies. It seems like this is how it's going to work out in Malaysia. We do need enforcement of policy and regulations, but thoughts are welcome. But all of these are interconnected and need mission. Yes, definitely. It's a systemic problem that requires systemic solutions. Corporate accountability and CAR programs, CSR programs. Okay, very good suggestions. Thanks a lot. All right, and now I actually move on to the next slide. If anyone interested to share a bit more on what they think about, points that you raised, like for example, Cindy talked about enforcement of policy and regulations. If you'd like to elaborate further, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll move on. It does feel like policy govern quite a lot of these things people do not think is profitable. Yeah, I think policies are very important because some of the actions taken are actually require extra monetary effort. Say recycling or extra effort, you need to travel a distance. If you don't have recycling facilities near your home, you need to travel. Maybe that also involve a bit of travel emissions from place to place. So it is true that policies and governance are important to empower individuals to take actions, to go through the extra miles, to do this inconvenient thing. Yeah, low carbon lifestyle might not be convenient. Say bringing your own bag, it might not be convenient if you go for a run and you have to have a bag with you. But again, this is inconvenient, but it actually saving your money and also reducing emissions. So that's why policies and incentives need to be in place to empower people to give us the motivation. Any other thoughts before I move on to a quick ceremony? And maybe just want to check if there's any difference in terms of enablers for those who are actually based in Indonesia. I understand there's a couple of the participants, Mutia and David, based in Indonesia. Do you agree that whatever points raised by the participants from Malaysia also echo with what you think? Or is there any other enablers that you feel are essential to empower individuals? Yeah, corporate are profit based, that's right. That's why there's this CSR thing, but again, there's also a lot of debates around if CSR is truly genuine or is it just for marketing. I think that's why there's our government, in fact, they're working closely with corporates, especially the multinational ones and also the government link. So we have these government link companies where they are actually, in a way, because it's government linked, so they need to serve the people as well. So they have the responsibility to do something good for the people in terms of creating more jobs, creating more renewable energy projects. Performative or not, debate on greenwashing effort. Kenny, you might explain that?
No, this just to echo into that's
Yeah.
not what we say, whether it's a marketing ploy or not. If they want to do CSR in terms of that. So it's whether like you deem it's whether a public perception is there a performative act of doing a CSR for the good of it, or is it just really what it should be? So it kind of links a bit of, if we say some initiative like corporates or for-profit organization, are those considered greenwashing or not greenwashing? It's always a balance in between to say like, oh, is this a ploy or not a ploy? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, totally agree. I think sometimes it's also very hard to tell if it's a marketing ploy or not. And there are also advocates for those companies, because there's also like there's an expert in, I can't remember his name, but he's saying that actually some companies are generally doing something good for the environment. However, there's this greenwashing notion that's going on, and they are afraid of promoting what they're doing because they're afraid they're being called out as greenwashing. So they are rather do it, but not really over doing the marketing bits of it. because it will then be scrutinized by NGOs. And hence, it's also about I understand, NGOs. I mean, we are not NGOs. We perform like the NGOs, but we are not. That's like the more extreme end of NGO, where they really scrutinize company, whatever actions they do. There will be a magnifying glass to understand if companies are truly, genuinely leading to lower emissions or not. And that's actually deters certain companies who want to come on board to reduce emissions. But again, certainly there are companies who are doing it just for the show and not actually reducing emissions or purchasing carbon credits from non-reputable sources. I mean, that happens in overseas companies as well. We do have a bit of time, that's why I'm actually dwelling on this topic. Any other thoughts, or about carbon footprint in general, or your thoughts around doing something is better than none. Yeah, at least if you're moving than just sitting there and do nothing. I mean, we can sit here and do pretty, right? We can do nothing because it's a next generation problem. But in fact, actually, let me just take back the words I say just now. It's actually not a next generation problem. We're actually experiencing the impact already. True. So I feel as well. So if you were to look back, some of the policies will be impressed by the policy documents that has been published by the government. They are very nice laid out. But again, how much are being put in place? That's a bigger question. There's always a nice report and nice PDF. So I think there's one thing, we need more actions than PDFs in the world. There's a lot of PDF, very nice chart produced by, who knows, maybe Boston Consulting. No, I'm not working for any of the consultancy firms, so I can just say that. Yeah, they actually, and the fact is, I mean, the session is not live. So the session, our government, they actually hire consultants. That's another problem. So they hire consultants to produce, like, say, sustainability roadmap. How do we get to what's that called? It's actually we hire consultants to build like very nice report roadmaps, but sometimes it doesn't really echo with what the local needs are. So there's a mismatch between what the consultants are doing and also what's actually happened on the ground. I think we do need more local people on the ground to get involved in policy making than having consultants who just propose some big jargons and nice words, but not really implement or relatable to the local context. Yes, and totally right, Nithya. The government has done an amazing job with policy and regulations, but implementations. I think same goes to Malaysia as well. It's the same thing. We share the same problem. I do hope I do see some changes. There's a lot of awareness being created, I think, upon the election of our new government. At least on the climate change front, we are creating a lot of awareness. There's a lot of companies or a lot of organizations are collaborating with government to create programs. And recently there was also a book launch as well. I haven't read the book by our minister, Nick Nazumi. Maybe some of you guys have read the book. So I think it is good that there is this awareness being built. But I think what's needed is more like concrete actions and proper incentives for us to really lead a more sustainable lifestyle. Because now where I'm based is in Scotland. Guys, feel free to chime in. I feel like I'm talking to myself, but yeah. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to just jump in. It's fine. I think my connection today is good enough to handle this back and forth. Yes, can you raise your hand?
Yeah. I think something that reminds me of is that during one of the events I represented Sustainkita to talk about in charisma, one of the question that one of the participant asked was like how it's some sort of like we know it's sort of pointless for a lot of individual actions to do when there's a lot of systemic problems happening, and then all of big companies are like doing a lot more than stopping the cycle. So it's like instead of upcycling, they downcycle a lot of things when it comes to recycling. And then they say, like, so basically they're asking like, would that actually matter if what we do is actually making any impact at all? Because yeah, they are quite concerned about that. And then it comes to, and then I think one of the answer was like, it's sort of a balance in between of how policies is made versus how policies are actually enacted. And actually carried out not just by the government, but also by a lot of stakeholders and the citizens who should be involved in it. So the mismatch between a lot of policies should be how to say should be regulated, and also narrowing the gap in between, because a lot of things is like, oh, you go buy a lot of drinks, then even though you don't want to use straws, right, but they end up giving you straws anyway. Or maybe some of the recent moves, you would see that people complaining the plant fiber straws are very useless to use. So they keep complaining. I don't want to name the franchise, but then it's because of that feedback, right? They came up with a solution, which is they go back to using plastic, but they claim is which they claim is very quickly biodegradable and very easily converted to basically they say it's very easily converted to biodegradable stuff lah. But then that's the thing, is like I cannot find any information whether that, like, how that plastic is made, like plastic straw is made. It's like what the actual conversion. There's no like real stories behind it. So I'm taking it with a really grain of salt. So yeah, so a lot of things like that is happening. You see people revert back to using single-use plastic, just because for the convenience of it. And it's a very gray area to navigate, because you want convenience, but then you also like, oh, I don't want to use a lot of plastic. So it's a sort of mismatch there also. And also one thing I think as one thing that's very important for us to notice that is that for us to understand privilege, how privileged we are to be able to talk about climate change, when there's a mismatch of, like, if someone is way too busy with their life and anything, right, it's not necessarily a huge priority in their mindset or in their lifestyle to, like, I want to use less plastic, I want to use my own shopping bag, unless there's an actual lifestyle change, because they are already struggling, but they are already very busy with whatever is happening in their life. Yeah, so there's a lot, those are the mismatch, and also the things that a lot of very gray area when it comes to climate change that we talked about last time.
Yeah. Thanks for the thoughts, and definitely agree on the policy front, implementation, policy making and implementation. And I also feel, I think at least I think in my day-to-day life, and I think we all experience as well, we have a plan. So policy is like a plan. Implementation will change. So things might not go as planned. So that requires a lot of effort to improve the plan, continue to improve the monitoring progress. However, sometimes, with the change in government, is not being done. Or maybe there's a plan like 10 years ago, it's supposed to be done by now, like 2030 plan. But where are we with the 2030 plan? And back to what you're saying about the plastic, I think that's also happening in the company. I mean, what you're saying about plastic straw, like the paper straw and also plastic straw, and then, it's not convenient because the paper straw melts when you drink. And another similar example will be in a company. So say, for example, agricultural company, they want to introduce biodegradable plastic in terms of the planting, like a small plant seedlings, because sometimes you want to plant it instead of using the plant. I'm not sure if everyone aware that sometimes you put the plant in a plastic, right? So it's in terms of seedlings. So there's another way of doing it, is to change it to biodegradable plastic. But how biodegradable plastic is also another question. If it actually good for the environment, or if it degrade, it will become microplastic.
Yeah.
So there's so much issues. And is it convenient? Because if it's biodegradable, which means it tear down very easily, moving the plant from place to place, it might just break, during the process. So companies might not be opting for the biodegradable, although it's good for the environment, but it's not good for logistics, it will break.
Yeah, and then also one thing about biodegradable, this term is very generally, is too broadly used. When you say biodegradable, not everything is biodegradable, but so in terms of actually want to convert plastic into actually the term they should be looking for is actual conversion from plastic into environmentally breakable compounds, rather than just biodegradable. Because even if you biodegrade, right, how much of the plastic is actually converted into a safe, harmless compound for the environment? or like
Yeah.
harmless compound for the environment. So although some of the plastics might be biodegradable, but then maybe they only degrade until becoming microplastic only. That is still the problem of microplastic in the environment also. So that's actually one of the research that has been done by a lot of people to see like, oh, how safe, environmentally safe is biodegradable plastic bag, for example, when it is claimed like that.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Kenny, for the sharing. I think that was very insightful and it's very relevant. It's very true as well. The diamond is in the details. We thought biodegrader, that's the term, but no, there's a lot more to that. Cool. And next one. So here comes the exciting session. Sorry, I've been dragging a bit of time. So it'll be a very simple virtual ceremony, and we just want to appreciate those who have stick with us since the first carbon free workshop on the 5th of January. So I'm just gonna quickly so we have 3 active participants today. So I will announce the winners later on, but just want to kind of thank you for joining our sessions and thank you for the feedback. Thank you for completing the carbon footprint. And just for your information, the first winner will get if I remember correctly, is Ringgit Malaysia, RM 100, RM 200, and the second winners will be RM 100, and the third will be a 50 ringgit. Again, for those who are based in Indonesia, the amount will be converted, and it will be in forms of vouchers. For those who are in Malaysia, it will be touch and go. Right, and next, congratulations to the winners with us today. We have the most active participants, Alexandra. Congratulations! Can I hear some clapping from the participants? You can unmute the clap, or you can send a virtual clap. That's fine as well. We want to make it more interactive. And second place, we have David. Congratulations. And third place, the third most active participant, Christy. All right, and the rewards in terms of the vouchers will be communicated in email. So I notice that you have sent us your relevant details, and the team will be working on sending the vouchers ideally before Monday. If you don't receive that, let us know. We'll try to make it before Monday. All right. So congratulations to the active participants. Next slide. So we have come to the end of the session. We are actually on time, surprisingly on time, though we have actually many slides. We would like to listen to your feedback. So this marks the end of our carbon reduction journey, and really appreciate the last part of the discussion will be talk about enablers and also what are the challenges that we face to reduce our emissions, and if our personal emissions really matter, because we also want to understand what can be more impactful if we focus our effort on. So if you can just scan the QR code and tell us your feedback, we really appreciate that. And so there's 2 feedback forms in the chat. I think there's one. I think to make things easy, let me just go to the feedback form, and I will paste them on the next slide. All right. So on the right hand side, there will be a feedback form. It's on user feedback form. It's more on pause 0. And on the left hand side, this is more like a overall feedback.
Oh, just to cut it for a bit. So David, for the miscalculation that you experienced just now in the calculator feedback, right? Please also write that feedback into the user feedback for the calculator for our on the record, so we can keep it on the record also. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Yes, please let us know if you do face any difficulties completing that. This is overall feedback on the workshop where you will be uploading the PDF. So if you don't know where to find the PDF, I can also demonstrate that again. So if you come on to this side, and if you go on the dashboard, you'll be able to download the emissions report. And this will become a PDF, which we can attach on the user feedback, on the overall feedback form. So let me just come back to this. And this is more like a, sorry, okay, can't see that. That's fine. This is the common calculator feedback form. So anything that you would like us to improve, you can send it here. And to also motivate participants to complete the feedback form, for those who complete both feedback form, you will stand a chance to win another 100 ringgit vouchers. Evaluation of feedback form will be at the discretion of the committee team. So the subject is subject to you completing both forms, and then you will stand a chance to win 100 ringgit vouchers. We do hope that the entire program has been beneficial. If you're interested to know more about some of the webinars that we've conducted in the past, you can always go on to our website, www.sustainkita.org, and you can navigate to SOS Climate Code Red. And there's a series of videos that have been uploaded, starting from the first one, which is the first carbon footprint workshop, hosted by Jason. Second one is on overall climate change by Jason. And then the second one is on renewable energy and how we can consider solar panel installation. Last one on waste management. And then coming to this last carbon footprint workshop. If you are interested to stay connected, I think we have a next slide. I hope those of you have scanned the QR code. I'll move to the next slide, but if you haven't, I'll come back to this slide. So, sorry, ignore this feedback form. Just want to avoid. This is not the latest.
Also regarding the
you can find
videos.
Mm.
Oh, sorry to cut you a bit. Also regarding the videos, right? You can also alternatively go to our YouTube channel. For the SOS Climate Code Red series, there's a playlist with the same name, SOS Climate Code Red playlist. So from there, you can easily access our past videos for this whole SOS journey, from the first workshop, all the 3 webinars, and also finally this concluding workshop as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. So yeah, we've been trying to put together all the videos because I understand you might not have the time to join our previous sessions, but it's more like one thing leads to the other. So it's like connected series of events. Will be good if you can just kind of go through them. I personally feel the first webinar, it was quite insightful to understand the evidence of climate change and how our policies and also all these various incentives. So it was discussed about by Dr. Rennert and Ideal. One is expert in carbon market, Dr. Rennert, and the other is an active advocate currently working in WWF. So their insights have been very beneficial for the audience. So we do have quite a number of people joining as well in the session. And then renewable energy, if you are particularly interested in how you can explore renewable energy. And the last one was waste management. And if you're still here, so just sharing some of the rationale behind the creation of the webinars. So the first webinar was climate change, more like to understand the context, why it matters. The second is more like some actions, more on household that you can take to install solar panels. So that again, reduce your potential home emissions. And the last one is on waste management. And hopefully that will also lead to lower emissions from your waste generated. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the session. I don't want to kind of drag more time. So back to the feedback form. If you haven't, pretty sure you can scan the feedback form. I understand it'll be hard to scan 2 feedback form. So you can have it one on browser and then another one scan again, and maybe hopefully 2 will be in your history and you complete that at your own time. Otherwise, we'll be sending an email. The team will be sending an email to remind everyone on the feedback form that yet to be completed if you haven't. And again, it's not empty promise. The person will complete the 2 feedback form based on the quality of feedback, and also it's on the discretion of the committee team. I know it's hard to evaluate. Will receive 100 ringgit vouchers. and that will be communicated at a later stage. And for those winners, we'll be in touch and to inform you how do you claim your vouchers. All right, I think this marks the end of our session. Kenny, we can stop recording. So again, thanks a lot for being with us. I hope it has been insightful. So yeah, if you have any final feedback, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to say anything. Just thanks a lot for joining.